So you need to be confident in what you're saying. One thing I'd say is that if you don't know something, really just literally tell them that I'll get back to you rather
Yeah.
than making the answer up. It really helps you. They would completely understand. If you say to them, if they ask you a question you don't know about it, just say, I'll get back to you. Um, I'll get back to you by this date. Because I think with surveying, you need to be, it's like this, the decision that you make, it's going to affect someone's, you know, rate of how much money that they're going to pay in taxes. So
Yeah.
you need to be really diligent. If you don't know about something, just, tell them that you'd get back to them.
Welcome to the How I Got Here series. Hi, I'm Sarah Hayford, the founder of the Land Collective, an organisation that supports young people from underrepresented backgrounds to get their first start in real estate and the built environment. Today, I'm speaking to Ayaz Khan, an apprentice surveyor at the Valuation Office Agency within the civil service. Found out more about his start in the property industry and his tips for other aspiring apprentices. I hope that you enjoy the episode. Hi Ayaz, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, and so can you just give us a quick introduction about you and your background?
Okay. So hi, my name is Ayaz. I'm an apprentice surveyor working at the Valuation Office Agency. And I'm also studying at the University College of Estate Management. So I'm en route to become a chartered surveyor.
So kind of how and why did you get into the property industry?
So essentially, I've been interested in property from like quite a young age. The reason being is that like my parents, they had like one or two properties, so like a really small property portfolio. So I would see my parents like purchase like a small property that was quite run down. And then what they would do is sort of transform it into sort of a family home. So most of my weekends was sort of spent overseeing this project. So I could see like a really old property that hadn't been touched for like 20, 30 years, like really like the walls yellow, like that that sort of thing. And then I could see it sort of being taken back to brick. I could see it sort of being like plastered, new flooring. Like I could see the basically the whole transformation, and it was really satisfying to see the end result. That like this is what the property was, and look what like it's turned into now. So I really enjoyed that part. Um, and then as I got sort of older, so in my sort of teens, I was sort of responsible for overseeing tenants.
Yeah.
So in that time, we didn't really use agents. We just had like private sort of tenants. So we just like sort of find tenants that are looking for property and give them the property, do all the checks and stuff. So one thing I found interesting about this sort of aspect was that I got to know the tenants a bit more. So one time we had a tenant who was from who relocated from Switzerland,
Yeah.
so I sort of showed him around the area, and I was so interested to learn like the differences between here and Switzerland. And he was telling me, "Oh, look, like in Switzerland, we don't have this. We like our shops are quite further away, and like everything's nearby here." So I was like really interested to learn more about it. So in terms of how I got into the industry, so during lockdown, I wanted to learn more about the sort of surveying industry. So I actually enrolled onto a access module. So this module, so essentially, it was like one of the first. It's like one module from the real estate degree.
Yeah.
So it was sponsored by CSTT. So it's a Chartered Surveyors Training Trust. So essentially, they sponsored me to do this module, so I didn't need to pay for it. Um, it gave me a really good insight into the built environment. I really enjoyed the second module of this second assignment, sorry, of this module. It's about sustainability. So, for example, I learned how tenants they're increasingly looking for energy efficient properties, and they're looking for healthier, green certified properties, and they don't really mind paying more. Because in the long term it sort of helps the environment. And then I also learned about how this impacts investors, because investors, like tenants, basically looking for properties that were green certified, and they didn't want to move into properties that were not green certified. So it was impact investors that had to invest into these properties. So following this, so once I'd completed the module, I was sort of researching pathways to get into become a chartered surveyor. So I came across this, the route that I'm currently on. So it's a 5-year route at the Valuation Office Agency. I sort of read the advert. I also went onto the UCM website. That's the University College of Estate Management. And I sort of looked at like what sort of things I'd be studying, what sort of supports available. I sort of applied, and that was it. Really, I was successful, so I got the role.
That sounds really, really good. And what does your kind of apprenticeship at the VOA look like? So, what does your day to day include, and how are you finding it?
Yeah, so I'm finding it really well at the moment, actually. So in my sort of day to day, so at the moment, so my job title is Apprentice Surveyor. I basically work in non-domestic rating. So non-domestic rating is essentially buildings like shops, offices, warehouse. They're like buildings that are not domestic, so people don't really live in them. They're for business sort of use. So essentially, what I do is, so all properties that are non-domestic, the local councils, for example, I live in Birmingham, so Birmingham City Council, what they do is, we give them the rateable value. So we'd say how much this property, essentially, what's the rateable value for this property. The councils then calculate by using that figure to determine how much tax the owner of the property has to pay, or the occupier. So my role is essentially, if a ratepayer, so the occupier of a building, if they think that the rateable value that we've set is incorrect, they submit a challenge case. So essentially, they put their case forward to why they think or why they believe that it's incorrect. So, for example, they could say, look, the neighbouring property that's got a rateable value of 15,000, and ours is 20,000. So they're basically saying, well, why is that? Ours should be the same as the neighbouring property. So basically, essentially, my role is to look at what they've submitted, look at the evidence that they've submitted, and then I use this information to conduct my own research. So what I'd do, I'd look at all the properties in the street. What's the difference between the subject properties, that's the property of the person who's disputing the rates, and then I look at the neighbouring properties, and then I'd sort of, it does take quite a while to sort of, you know, think about whether or not the ratepayer is correct or not. So I'm basically
Yeah.
doing my own research against their research and looking at whether it's correct or not. If they've got a point, it's incorrect. We basically reduce the rateable value. If if it is incorrect, we do sort of correct it. If it is correct, then we give them the reasons why. So we'd give them supporting information to say why we think it's correct. And then there's a whole process. If they disagree with us, they can go further to tribunal, and then we can essentially start. If that, an example would be, so let's say they disagree with my decision, it would go to tribunal. So an independent party would look at both sides, and they would then come to a decision.
Yeah.
In terms of my usual day, so just a normal day at work, I start off by sort of logging on to my computer. So we have flexi hours. I usually start at 9. So essentially, we can work between anytime between 7 and 7. We can decide on as long as we do our hours that we're contracted to do. I usually start at 9. I log on, have a look at my emails. And also, I usually check if I've got any responses from ratepayers regarding their case. After this, I'll review all my cases and see if there's any cases that might need inspection. So some properties might need inspection. So let's say if they're saying that the property is smaller than what we've got it recorded at, then what I do is usually arrange an inspection. I go out and measure the property. If I can't do it myself, I'll get someone else. So we're all across the country, so we can get someone else, one of my colleagues, to have a look at it.
Yeah.
And also, like most weeks, I get invited to learning events. So for example, last week I had a training event which was about adjusting and analysing rents. So that was something I did last week.
Yeah. That sounds like really varied. So, is it mostly like no day is the same kind of thing?
Yeah, basically, I think that's the one of the things that I really liked about the role, is that every day is different. So for example, I could have a case. which is asking me whether they're asking me that the tone that's applied. So tone is basically the price per square meter that's applied. They could be saying that that's incorrect. I could have another case which is asking for an allowance. So they could say, for example, we've got quite a few steps in our property, so we should have an allowance because it's impacting us. It's impacting our
Yeah.
use. So yeah, the cases are varied. Every case is sort of different, which is one thing I really like because I'm not doing the same thing every day. Everything's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. And what would you say is maybe your favorite part of your job?
So my favorite part, I think, it would be definitely how I mentioned about how varied it is. So for example, like I mentioned about the tone. So the tone is the price per square meter that's applied, and that's what determines the rate of value. So for example, I could have a case which is in the Birmingham City Centre. So I'm looking at Birmingham City Centre research. What sort of tones have been applied for other offices in Birmingham City Centre? I'm looking into the whole area. I'm looking into the street, and so it's really interesting to find out more about why that sort of value has been applied. And then I could have a different case. I could have an allowance case. So essentially, someone could say our property is really run down, it's really poor quality, so we need an allowance because it's not to the standard that you'd expect a usual property to be. So then I
Yeah.
would need to look into whether we should grant them an allowance or not. Um, so yeah, so that's what I sort of like about it. That it's varied.
Yeah. And what about on the flip side, maybe the most challenging part of your job or the bit that you don't really like?
Yeah, so I'd say the most challenging part, especially when I first started the role, is that essentially it's a full-time role. So I'm doing full-time hours and I'm studying part-time. And also the fact that the learning is all online. So the University College of Estate Management is all online. It's not face-to-face. However, I'd say this aspect sort of was challenging at the start, but after a while, I sort of got used to it. I was surprised at how much support was available from the University College of Estate Management. They've got like a
Yeah.
whole learning support team. They've also the webinars, they're all recorded, so I can look at the webinars at my own time. I don't need to be, if I was going to like a face to
Yeah.
face sort of university, I'd have to go in, I'd have to take time out. Whereas usually I look at my webinars in the evening after work and just have a look and
Yeah.
watch them. And then there's also the option to email the tutors if you've got questions. There's group forums as well. So there's like people like me that are on the same route. We can just like discuss things. There's also catch up sessions with the tutors. So the people that are running the modules, you can just literally put in a meeting and have a discussion with them. So there's loads of support available. And I think with the support that's available, it sort of overcame that challenging part. And then the other thing I'd say is that there is 1 day per week which is given to me as well. So 1 day during the week, I'm allowed that whole day. I basically just use that to study. So for example, if I'm working like Monday to Friday, I'd work Monday to Thursday, and on Friday I'd have a study day. So on the Friday, I can just watch all my webinars, do the activities I need to do, which is really helpful. So I've been given that 1 day a week to study as well.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I went to UCEM as well, so I
Oh,
understand a bit
okay.
about it being virtual and how to get used to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And kind of moving more into more like the advice that you have, and
Yeah.
just to ask a question that we get from a lot of young people who
Mm.
interact with our content. So, what did you do for A level or when you were at college or sixth form? And do you need any specific subjects to go into property?
So when I was at college, I did a BTEC level 3 business studies.
Yeah,
So that was equivalent to 3 A levels. So I definitely say the reason why I chose that was because I think I'm more of a practical person. So
yeah,
I'd like just like going to a lecture or a class, learning the all about it, and then going back and writing an assignment. So for
yeah,
me, I preferred that aspect. And the other thing was that for me, A levels, I think it was just a lot of content that I'd had to retain. And then sort of exams, it just wasn't for me, and I just preferred to do BTEC. So I just did a BTEC. I got the highest. I got a triple distinction, which is great. So yeah, and then it's equivalent to three A stars at A level. So I was really happy that I made a good choice doing that. In terms of the skills, so the BTEC that I did had quite a lot of different modules. So there was the finance modules. So I learned about financial management and accounting, and that's definitely helped me because at the moment I just completed a people and organizational management module, and in that module there was a financial management aspect, so I could literally remember the things that I'd done at college, and I was sort of bringing it back, and it was like, oh look, I remember balance sheets, I remember doing profit and loss, so that
Yeah.
they were definitely things that helped. um I think all the modules helped. It was like a really varied. It was over 2 years. It was really varied course. So yeah, I don't think you need a specific course as long as you sort of try the best that you can at college and get the grades that you need. If you don't, it's literally not the end of the world. I'm sure you can try again. It's all about, I think, if you make a mistake, it's fine. You basically just get up and just try again.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people in my college that they didn't get like triple distinction stars, but they still went ahead and went to university, and they still went on to
Yeah.
get jobs. So literally, it's not about getting the highest. Obviously, you need to try, but it's just like, how if something happens, how good at you at getting up and trying again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think that's great advice.
yeah.
And in terms of maybe your personal advice for young people that are interested in maybe
Mm,
doing an apprenticeship at the
yeah,
VOA or in the wider industry, what
yeah.
advice do you have for them and what skills do you think they need?
So essentially, the advice I would give is to gain as much knowledge that you can about what the role of a surveyor entails. So what I did was I sort of emailed every single company before I got to the VO. I did email quite a few companies. So I emailed like all the top ones, so JLL, CBRE, what was the other one? There was loads. Literally emailed all of them, and I was basically asking, do you have work experience opportunities? When are your roles opening? And I was lucky actually because I emailed them. A lot of them got back to me, and they sort of let me know when their work experience programs were opening. So when I was actually in college, I did some work experience at CBRE, and it was
Yeah.
literally face to face work experience. And honestly, that work experience really stayed with me for quite a while.
Yeah.
Like what I learned from it. So I had the opportunity to like sit with graduate surveyors, and they sort of talk to me about what they were doing, and they talked to me about how they got into the role, and I learned a lot. It was only 3 days, but I learned a lot doing that work experience at CBRE.
Yeah.
And then I also I did like, this is like past COVID. I did a bits of work experience at JLL. So I had like, I think it was a week long work experience. And again, they talked to me about all the different areas of the business. Had the chance to hear from graduate surveyors as well. And they basically, how like I'm explaining now what I do day to day. They had surveyors that talked about what they did day to day. So they would basically say,
Yeah.
I'm going out for an inspection, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, this is how my day ends. And I found that really interesting because I could relate. I could be like, okay, that's something that I'd like to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely email out all the companies. Keep an eye on their social media pages, LinkedIn. Um, just research the companies, research the role, what the role is about. By doing that, you'll stand out. So when I applied for the VO, I basically put everything in. I put in that, look, I've done this work experience. This is what I learned. I've spoken to this graduate. I spoke to a graduate. The graduate let me know about what they learn. So yeah, it'll make you stand out when you're in an interview. There's a lot more that you can talk about if you've had that work experience. In terms of the skills, I would say the skills that would really help you in the role is communication skills. So you need to have the ability to communicate with others effectively, both in writing and orally. So as a surveyor, so my role, I speak to a wide range of people. So, for example, I could be speaking to an agent, it could be like a director at JLL or at CBRE or any of the private companies. So, you need to be confident in what you're saying. One thing I'd say is that if you don't know something, really just literally tell them that I'll get back to you rather
Yeah.
than making the answer up. It really helps you. They would completely understand. If you say to them, if they ask you a question you don't know about it, just say, I'll get back to you. Um, I'll get back to you by this date. Because I think with surveying, you need to be, it's like this, the decision that you make, it's going to affect someone's, you know, rate of how much money that they're going to pay in taxes.
Yeah.
So you need to be really diligent. If you don't know about something, just, tell them that you'd get back to them. Um, you need to learn how to adapt your style. So if you're speaking to, for example, I've spoken to a distressed customer, a distressed ratepayer. So there was a ratepayer that really was struggling to pay their rents. There were rates they were getting, bills from their local bailiffs coming to them from the local authority. So they're really struggling. So you need to adapt your style. So you just need to learn to speak to different people, speak to as many different people as you can, get feedback. And I think these things take time. Like it
Yeah.
will just take time. Over time, you'll learn these skills. Um, Another skill I'd say is analytical thinking, decision making. So what I do in my role, so I would get like a load of different rents, and then I need to use that information to decide whether what the tone that's been applied for that property is correct or not.
Yeah.
So essentially, what you need to do is look at the information, really analyze it, make notes, whatever helps you, break it down, and don't be afraid to ask. So if you feel like, oh, I can't come to a decision, I'm really struggling, don't be afraid to ask. Literally, just get on the phone to someone, ask them for advice. And like I said, just don't make a decision. Don't make an incorrect decision. It's better to ask them, tell them that I'd get back to you than give them incorrect advice. Even to this day, I literally check with someone. If I don't know, if an agent asks me something, I'm literally like, I'll get back to you by X date. Let me find out and get back to you.
Yeah. That's really,
Yeah.
really great advice. And I think like the part that you mentioned about being confident and
Mm.
um, being clear when you don't know something is very, very
Yeah.
accurate. Because yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
money on the line. So
Yeah,
yeah, having
definitely.
this is very, very important. And
Yeah.
if you have questions about maybe your career journey or what you do, where can they find you for more information?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Ayaz, Ayaz, and the surname's Khan, Khan, and I should come up. I work at the Valuation Office Agency, so the one that's showing as me working at the Valuation Office Agency. That's me. Just drop me a message. And also, just one thing I want to mention is that the apprenticeship vacancies at the Valuation Office Agency are actually live at the moment.
Oh,
So
great.
if you are interested, literally visit the Civil Service Jobs website. There's all the information there about how to apply, and yeah, just give it a go. If you have any questions, there's an email there that you can contact. If you have any specific questions about like start dates and stuff like that, or requirements. But if you've got any other questions, literally feel free to drop me a message.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No worries.